Hello. Happy Wednesday, everybody. How are you doing this week? For those who don't know me, my name is Lindsey Hall. I'm an intimacy and empowerment coach, and I do these weekly tea break chats where I come on and I chat about my life the past week, what's been going on, what's been coming up for me, the things that have been happening, and then I answer your questions that you guys send me for the Q&A part, and I do them every week. Their topics vary widely. Never quite know what's going to happen because life, right? Like things come up in life. But either way, I am so glad that you're here and hanging out with me. So, what has been going on this week? What has been coming up? It's been a pretty, normal week, which I actually don't say very often because there's usually stuff. But this week's been really good. So I had my girls last weekend for the whole weekend, which we are on a co-parenting schedule where we have a whole weekend on, a whole weekend off, and then 2 split weekends where I've got them just Saturday or just Sunday. And that's on a 4-weekly rotation that works really well for us. So last weekend I was just doing kid stuff. And then this week I've been just following what lights me up and what feels good and inviting more and more pleasure into my life. So it sounds so simple, but actually it's not. And so I was having a conversation today with a friend that probably is actually where I really want to talk about a bit more, because we were talking about surrender and what that means. And this friend of mine was also a coach, but we were out for a walk and talking about how she has been inviting more surrender into her life and business, and talking about what that means for each of us, as well as sort of what we did post discovering this kind of work, what it's looked like as we've been going through our journeys, and where we're both at sort of now. And so for me, she was talking about, does surrender mean that you just let the world unfold, your life unfold, you just let it happen without any sort of direction or trying? Because if you ask for what you want, does that mean that you are then actually trying to control it and you're not surrendering to it? And that's not how I see it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of how I see surrender to be and what that means, and then also what that looks like in terms of practical terms for me in my life. So I think that surrendering doesn't mean you're just floating out there in the middle of the ocean, laying on your back floating, and wherever the ocean takes me, I'm going to go. I think that you can surrender, but while also your desires matter, and your thoughts of this is the thing I want, or the feeling I want, and you get to sort of choose what you want and then put it out there into the universe as your order, if you will. You put your order into the universe, but then that's where the surrender comes in, where you go, okay, I've put my order out there, and now I'm trusting that the universe is going to co-create this with me. And I truly believe in this idea, this we are connected to everything in the universe through this crazy energetic field that I don't understand, and I don't know how it works, but I do fully believe that we are made up of mostly energy, that everything around us is made up of energy. There is not, although it's here's where my body starts and ends, and here's this open space air, actually it's not quite that distinct. There is energy connecting us the entire way, everything about us. So I believe in this the energetic field of the universe, and I believe that things are working out for us if we surrender to that, and that we can lean into that and co-create things. I know this is all still a bit woo, and I will come down to more practical stuff, but so for me it's right, you come up with these desires, you put it out there into the universe, and then you and the universe are co-creating. And so what that means for me, so some practical examples of that are things where so if you say, for me in my business, I desire 5 one-to-one clients, and I sort of put that out there into the universe. Now, my friend's argument was, well, isn't that you trying to control what you want and saying I want these 5 one-to-one clients, and so if the universe then doesn't happen, give me that. If I don't get 5 one-to-one clients, does that mean that actually fuck the universe, it didn't, it doesn't exist, it didn't give me what I want. And the same could be said for God. If you are in the religious world and you're like, I asked for this thing, God didn't give it to me, he clearly doesn't exist. No, I don't think that. What I'm saying is that's the desire and I put that sort of name to it, but then I trust that the universe is going to work for me to give me actually what it is that I need, what is best for me, what is the highest thing for me. And it might look like what I thought it was going to look like. It might be 5 one-to-one clients. It might be none. It might be one client who pays me the same as those 5 did. It might be 10 clients. It might so it's that I get to pick my desires, and then I get to say, okay, universe, over to you. This is what I think I want, but what is actually best for me? And so it's trusting then, the trust part and the surrender part comes in with the knowing that but actually it is all going to work out for me, and that what I get is exactly what I needed there. And as well with the co-creation part is that it's not that I have to do everything, that I have to hustle and strive and be constantly pushing and pushing and pushing to try and get these 5 clients to fill up the spots that I wanted. We don't want that. It's not it's on me to hustle, because that just leads to complete burnout. And that is kind of the world that a lot of us sort of have been conditioned into, is you want something, you got to go out and get it, and it's all on you. Ain't nobody coming to help you. And I get that. I see that to an extent. You are responsible for your happiness and the stuff that you want. But also, there's the universe doing its stuff. And if you can surrender to the universe supporting you and doing what is best for you and working out for your highest good, it takes so much of the burden off of us. But the flip side is you don't want to entirely leave it all to the universe. It's not I can be I desire these 5 one-to-one clients, and now I'm just going to lounge around in bed and just wait for these 5 clients to show up and knock on my door. And I'm just, I'm just going to, I've told the universe what I want, so I'm going to lay here in bed until it gives me what I want. It's not that either. It's the combination, the co-creation here of I know what I desire, I'm trusting the universe is going to do its part, and I'm going to do mine as well. So I will do the things to reach out and make connections. I will take aligned action. So, and when I talk about aligned action, I mean following the things that feel good to you, and really trusting that the things that feel good to you, if you can follow that path of this feels good, so I'm going to go that direction, and I'm going to do that next. And if you are following that and following your desires, the universe is going to be going, okay, and I'm going to it's leading you in the right direction. And even if that path doesn't necessarily look like it makes sense, it doesn't have to look like it makes sense by any means. Trusting that as you do the things that lights you up, the universe is pointing you in that direction, or is going to put the stuff in the path that you need, and it is working out for you in all that sense. So you're doing your bit, you're taking the action, and trusting that the universe is doing its bit and is also taking action that you might not see. The universe can be doing its stuff in the background and you might not see it, and trusting that it's happening anyway. In the same way that you plant bulbs, you can plant bulbs in the fall or the winter for that you trust are going to bloom in spring. You can't see anything happening over the winter. You plant those bulbs and then they just disappear, right? And you're well, nothing's happening. You're not going to dig them back up again in December. You're going to trust that it's doing all the stuff that needs to happen. And come springtime, the bulbs are going to come forth and burst into flower. And you'll be great, yay. The stuff that we do energetically is similar. You take the action, you do your part, and you trust that the universe is doing its part, even if it's not seen. So to me, that's what surrendering and trusting means. And it's really leaning back over and over. And please don't get me wrong. I'm making it sound oh, that it's so easy to do. You just do that. It's hard. It's really hard. And this whole conversation started because I was saying to her that I really truly believe in this, but sometimes it's really frustrating when the universe isn't doing things on my timetable. I wish that I could speed things up, that I could have it, I wish that I could just make my things exactly what I want to happen, when I want them to happen, and can I not just make it be so? Really? Can I not? And actually, A, no, you can't. But B, that's not actually what I would want, because there's so many things that I think I want, And then the universe can give you something totally different and bigger or better or just different in a different kind of way. And so I think that we use our desires as sort of a navigational guide, but then trusting that it's like, that my coach Kimberly has a phrase that I absolutely love, which is this or something better. So Kim says this all the time, and it's like, I have this desire, and I trust that it's this or something better. And that can be in business, in love, in relationship, in anything. So like if I've got a dream of like, maybe even when I'm dating and I'll see like there's somebody who I want to date. I'm like, oh, this feels so good. But rather than putting all of the pressure on, like, it has to be this relationship, like this man that I'm dating, like I want this to last forever. And then you break up and you're like, fuck the universe. Like, I said I wanted that and it didn't give me that. And it's like, no, it means that this is like the standard I'm setting. I want this or something better. And so if this doesn't work out, it's because there is something better that is going to come. Or, back to like wanting 5 one-to-one clients. If the universe doesn't give me that, it's like, okay, I want this or something better. And I don't know what that could be. I don't know what it could look like or when it's going to happen. But I'm like, hey, universe, I've got some standards of like, this is where the bar is set. Please go ahead and surprise me if you want to. Whereas if it just gives you what you want, often we set our own bar kind of low, actually. It's like, this is what I'm asking for. And the universe is like, but I want to give you this. Whereas if you got exactly what you wanted, it would just be this. I'd rather be totally open to the idea of, no, if you want to give me this, I will take this. And actually, if you want to give me this, I'll take that. Like, always open to the possibility of even more. So, and that has been showing up as well in my actual life. All of this is my actual life. But that trusting and believing that what is best for me is also best for everybody around me, and that following my desires and following what lights me up and following what feels good and fun, like all of that is a good thing. All of that is absolutely a good thing, both for me and for everybody around me. And I've been leaning into that in a lot more ways that don't necessarily make sense. And I don't want to go into details on this part right now, but there's somebody new in my life that doesn't necessarily make sense on paper. And rather than being like, it doesn't make sense, so I'm not going to go there, I'm leaning into, but this feels good and this feels fun, and let's go from that. And already, like, if you've been following me for the past year or so, when I've been on this dating adventure, I talk about how I always learn things from the relationships I'm in, from the men that I date, whether it's a single date or many more than that. And I always pull things from these experiences, these beautiful lessons. And this one that doesn't make sense right now, like, there's stuff that I, like, even from the very first moment of, like, asking for a date, I was like, ooh, I'm feeling the lesson there. And pulling in like all of the good stuff that the universe is trying to show me. And so it doesn't have to be logical. It doesn't have to look like what you thought it was going to look like. Like this one, absolutely. I would never in a million years have described this is what it's going to look like or who it's going to be or how it's going to be. Like, no. But it feels good. It's teaching me things. I'm having fun. I'm letting more pleasure into my life. Like there's all sorts that can come from being open and surrendering and be like, hey, universe, I told you what I want, and I trust that you're giving me what I need. And that what I need might not be the same as what I thought I wanted, but you are making, the universe is pulling it all together for me. So to me, that's what surrender and trust means. So I will move on to the Q&A bit, because I've got 2 really good ones this week. And they're both, I think I say this every time, like I could talk about all of these things for so long, but the point is that they're little snippets, so I'll try and keep them short. So the first question was about getting a new job and having a new job. So the question was, how do I choose between the job that I'm already in that I absolutely don't hate versus this new job opportunity that's come up that I wasn't even looking for but has landed here? And like, I've got a million pros and cons, and like, how do I choose, basically? My very short and very annoying, but very true answer is there is no right or wrong. And I remember my coach, again, but I definitely remember Kimberly telling me this, but I also think Chelsea, my other coach, told me as well, that there is no right or wrong answer. And I was like, this is bullshit. I absolutely hate that answer. Like, no, there's got to be how do I make the right choice here? And then being like, there is no right or wrong choice. And I was like, ugh, it's not what I wanted to hear. But it's so true. And so when you're trying to overthink, and actually I didn't even plan this, but this question pulls so nicely into what I was just talking about with the surrender thing and the going with what feels good and following your pleasure. So I know for me, when I used to make choices like job decisions, and it was like, do I stay in my current job or do I go get a new one? Or when I start looking for a new one, do I take job A or job B? And I would get so in my head and be so overthinking all of it because I was trying so hard to come up with the right answer. And I was trying so hard to see the whole future path. And it was like, well, if I take this job, then it could give me that experience, which could lead here, which could be a good opportunity for that. If I take this job, then it could be that, which is different. Or if I stay, and I would just try and map out like every eventuality. And it doesn't work like that. Really, what I've now come to see is that actually every situation that you're in is going to give you lessons and experience and opportunities, and they are just different. They're not necessarily right or wrong or better or worse or good or bad. They're just different. And every path, there's no way you can foresee where the paths are going to take you. And instead of trying to map out this thing, go with what feels good for right now. And that's not to say I don't think you should completely ignore any future consequences of any sort, but it's much more about what would be most supportive to me right now, what would feel best for me right now, what lights me up, what gets me excited to try that thing, rather than my brain says I should do this thing because that's what makes the most sense. Because there is no guarantee of the future at all. So so if you're if I stay in this job for another year, then I'll get that experience and I'll be able to go get this other job I wanted instead. Maybe, but also you could drop dead next week and never going to get that other job because all you had was this time. Drastic. But also, we all know what happens. There is no guarantee of the future. And do you want to be continuing in a place that you're not happy with that might end up getting you somewhere else? Or do you want to go actually what feels good right here and now, because that's all you got is the right here and now. And it's not going to be the right or wrong choice. It's just what is best for you. So I strongly encourage, when you're in this position of how do I choose, to really come back to getting out of the shoulds, getting out of the what makes the most sense, and coming back to what feels right for me. What feels like the right answer, and knowing that none of the answers that you choose are forever. Because that was the other thing, was when I was overthinking and trying to plan out all these things, I sort of had this idea that the choices I make, I'm stuck with. And part of that was because if I change my mind, what will people think? Or if I go in a different direction, they're going to think I'm flaky or whatever it was. But actually, I've really embraced I'm making a choice for right here, right now, and I can make a different choice whenever I need to. If that's in a month from now when I start the new job, if that's in a year from now, if that's 10 years from now, whenever I need to make new choices, I can. I'm not locked into anything, because even the idea that you are making a choice forever is a complete illusion. Life doesn't work that way. The person that you marry, you may or may not be with forever. The forever house that you buy may or may not be your forever house. There is absolutely, oh, hi, beautiful. But there's absolutely no guarantee of forever anyway. So even pretending you can make a forever choice is just a total illusion anyway. Oh, I celebrate you too, Melissa. I love you so much. So that was question number 1 about choosing a new more Question number 2, how much time have I got for this one? Okay, we're doing all right. So question number 2 was it was a more open-ended question, but I'm going to try and address it anyway because I think it is really important. So the question was, it was a long question, so I'm going to try and sum it up as well. But basically what it came down to was, I'm not okay right now, and I have finally told people in my life that I am not okay and I have asked for help and I don't actually even know what that looks like or what that means or what I need. I just know that like, I'm not okay. What the heck do I do from here? And that I'm going to fast forward to, we jumped on the call and had a one-to-one call about this because this is like quite a common thing, but I want to talk about it here as well because it is quite common. And so it's like, okay, so I know I need help, but I don't even know what that looks like. Like, what am I supposed to do from here? And I think, so one thing that we talked about was breaking this down into bite-sized chunks of, rather than being like, help. And there's all kinds of reasons why receiving help is really tricky for us. There's the fear of, I'm too much. I'm being a burden on other people. Like, I'm asking for too much from them. They're not going to want to support me in this. And similarly, the flip side of that, which is such a mind fuck that we can have these two fears at the same time, but there's the I'm too much. And at the same time, you can also have, and I'm not enough. So then it's like, but I'm not worthy of their time or their help, or like, why do I get to take up space in their lives? Or, like, I don't deserve to have the good things for me because I'm not worthy of that space for me. And so we can have all of these like really hard things that are stopping us from asking for the help, from knowing what the help actually means, and from receiving the help. And people being like, let me know if there's anything I can do. That's really freaking open-ended. And although it comes from a well-meaning place, it can really feel like, I don't know. All I know is that I'm not okay, but I don't know what I need from you. And so here's where I say, start small, first of all, but also professional help is massive here because it can take away a huge part of the burden of like, am I taking up too much of your time? Am I worthy of your time? Am I being too much? Or like, I don't deserve this. Whereas if you hire somebody as a starting spot, and I don't necessarily mean paid, I also mean like NHS, like their talk therapy through the NHS, or, free counseling, wherever. You can get it through your workplace sometimes. So I don't necessarily mean paid, but some sort of professional help, or, a coach or a therapist or whatever it is, that they are there for you. Like, we jumped on this one-to-one call and it was like, right, this 45 minutes, all I am doing is being here for you. I'm not feeling like I'm supposed to be washing the dishes, or I should be out grocery shopping, or I'm like, you're not taking up my time from anything else. I am fully focused on you. So like, lay it on me, whatever you've got. And it's the same for any other sort of like professional help when you're doing that. So very much like that in and of itself can actually be really freeing, because then it's like it eliminates this whole set of fears and this whole, like, it calms your nervous system in a way of like, oh, I know that you are here for me, and therefore I don't feel bad, I don't feel guilty taking up your time. So I am not saying this, I know it sounds quite self-serving, if I'm like, oh, you need help, like make sure you hire some professional, make sure you definitely come and pay me for this. And it's not, the point of this isn't to be self-serving. The point is to say there's a huge benefit for you in that they're there for you. And it can, like I said, it can wipe out a bunch of these fears. So that's a big, big thing, especially as like when it's very new for you to get started and very hard for you to ask for help. Like, think about it in terms of, and this is a silly little example, but like my car is filthy right now. Which is easier for me to do? Is it easier for me to go to the local car wash and be like, here's my 10 pounds, please wash my car for me? Or to be like, hey friends, can you come over and help me wash my car? For me, it's a lot easier to go to the car wash and be like, here's my money, because that is literally what they are there to do. Like, they are there to help me to wash my car. This is a pre-agreed thing. I know they're going to do it. I'm not being a burden on them. I'm not doing anything else. So it's the same when it comes to asking for help for your mental health, is rather than having your friends where you're like, can you help me with this? And they might want to, but they're not trained in it. They do have their own stuff going on. Whereas if you're like, hey, professional, we have this agreed contract where it's like, I'm going to give you money and you're going to hold space for me. Like, that's way easier to do. It's like getting my car washed at the car wash instead of asking my friends to help. So that part is, I think, a really great starting spot. And then it comes down to asking for it in these bite-sized little chunks. So starting small. And this is like a foundation of like all of the work that I do. I always believe in baby steps, in small, like get one step closer to your edge. Find your edge and push that little bit. Then find your next edge and push that. And take little steps so your nervous system can get used to whatever the new scary thing is in little bits. Whereas instead of like, it's like learning how to swim. Rather than jumping straight in the deep end of the pool, which I think is like how my mom learned to swim. Her dad like chucked her in the pool and was like, hope you save yourself, kid. It's not really how people do it these days, is it? It's like you start with the floaties. You start by kicking on the edge of the pool. You take the little safe steps that don't feel nearly as traumatizing. So it's the same with something like getting used to asking for help. Don't traumatize your system even further by being like, I have to go all the way in with this big thing. Instead, find little ways. So find little things you can do. Like, ask your friend for, can you just sit and have a cup of tea with me? And can I just talk to you for the space of a cup of tea? And can I just take up that much space? And then they can say yes or no. You give them the opportunity to hold the space or do it at a different time. Or getting used to you taking the space for yourself. So if you don't normally take time for yourself, booking a 2-week all-inclusive vacation by yourself to the Maldives is probably going to be like super traumatizing to your nervous system. Whereas if you start with, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have an hour walk by myself just because. I might just sit in the woods. I might like go for a walk. I might just sit in the same spot, whatever it is. Like I'm carving out this hour for myself where that's the time is just for me. That feels a lot easier and safer to say yes to than a 2-week holiday somewhere else. So all these things, it's like finding the next thing that feels a little bit scary, but also doable. And then when you've done that, your nervous system's like, okay, that was okay. I didn't die from that. So then it's like, all right, do that again. Or find the next step. Like what's the next thing that pushes me to my edge or a little bit beyond my edge, but not overwhelming. And you just keep doing these small things and they take time, but they compound. They're important by themselves and they compound over time to add up to these big changes. And they make the bigger changes. The big changes can come without you even having noticed because it was little. And you're like, oh, look around. Like I got so far and I didn't even know it. And each time it makes it easier to take the bigger and bigger steps. So I always go back to take the little steps. Find a bite-sized chunk that's possible. Ask for help in this little way. It gets you used to asking for it in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming. It gets you used to receiving it in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming. And it helps eliminate that fear of like, I'm too much because you've given them the chance to say yes or no. So it makes giving you what you need easier as well. So that's where I recommend starting. So I think that's about me for the day. Let me see if there's anything else. I feel like today was a really good mix of the universe and energetic and surrender and also like practical stuff. So hopefully you feel that way too. I mean, to be honest, that's like my life. It's, I do live in the energetic and the universe and the spirit and all of that. And I also am very real life happens and stuff is here and, you got to mix it all together. So if that was really helpful, let me know. If there's anything that comes up for you, please send me a message. I always want these to be open conversations. So if you're like, what the fuck were you talking about, Lindsey? None of that made any sense to me. Let me know that. If you're like, oh my gosh, I totally resonated with that. That made so much sense. That was so helpful. Let me know that too. If you're like, oh, that piece was exactly what I needed to hear. Or, whatever it is, please, let's keep the conversation going. If it's in the comments, great. I love that. If you're like, this is a personal thing, send me a message. Send me an email. That's okay too. It can totally be we can do these messages in the DMs. If you've got questions for me that you're like, I want to talk about this either on next week's tea break chat, or if you just feel like I've got this question and I don't know where to start, send me a message. I absolutely send me a DM and let's talk about it. I want to hear what's coming up for you guys. I want to be supportive and help. So let's do that. So if you are on my Instagram, hi. If you're watching this on YouTube or somewhere else, you can find me on Instagram at Lindsey Hall Coaches. Wherever you are, if you want to see ways that you can work with me, check out my website, lindseyhallcoaches.com. It's got my latest current offers on there. If there's stuff that you want and you're like, I really want to work with you, but I don't see it as an option, send me a message. You guys, I am open. I am here for you. Doesn't mean that, I can do everything exactly how you want, but I'm here for you. Let's chat. Let's open the dialogue. It's what I love. So yeah, coming out. Also, if you go to my website, you can join my email list. So if you scroll right to the bottom, you can get my email list and you can have all kinds of cool stuff. Okay, not all kinds of cool stuff. I email generally about once a week, maybe a bit more if there's a new program coming out. But get my email list. It's another great way to stay in touch. So, lindseyhallcoaches.com, Instagram or Facebook, Lindsey Hall Coaches, and send me a message. Let's talk, okay? And if you want to send me a question specifically for next week's Q&A, watch my Instagram stories next Tuesday, and I will get it up then. All right, I love you. I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Mwah. Bye.